check. Yep. Okay. Thank you for having me. Great introductions, Mayor. Rand, of course, thank you, and obviously your great remarks. How do you follow up professional speakers? That's my first task of today. They did a great job, in my opinion, and that was the first thing I was thinking about. So thank you for taking the time and effort and putting a lot of thought into your words. It's obviously easily seen and felt. So I do have a note or two, a couple things with that great intro. Thank you. You left out a couple things because we all are human. I have non-judicial punishment. I've been NJP twice in my career, right? We all make mistakes. And, I got a letter of caution or two for being too rough on Marines, but we're all well-rounded individuals as far as I know. So I look across at the board here and I see some amazing legacies in front of me, and I just want to thank you all for your attendance here today, because I know it takes a lot, but it comes from the heart and passion to get up, to get in uniform, to be here today. It means a lot. So thank you for being here. So I do have several traumatic brain injuries with penetrating shrapnel and all that stuff. So if I do forget some of my words, you got two options. One of which is to throw me a key word to get me back on track, or two, make something up completely abstract like pink elephant, and I'll see what I came up with or thought I was talking about in relation to that. That's humor. My first task, though, is to thank you as well for being here today. It's hard to motivate motivators, right? If you go and speak to folks about the military or veterans, you are in uncharted territory, which is very easy. It's yours to navigate. To come and talk to you today, you're talking to people that know. You're talking to people that have experienced it. You're talking to people that are living it today. So it's a difficult task to motivate the motivators, because you already are. So thank you for being here again. Obviously, I looked around, I assessed the situation like any good military member or Marine, and I didn't see any, but if I did miss, are there any World War II veterans here today? As those numbers are trickling down. I wanted to thank you. World War II, obviously, 1941 to 1945, that greatest era is definitely getting smaller and smaller, and it's our responsibility to look out for them and to seek them out and thank them. So World War II, 41 to 45, Korea veterans here. Any Korea veterans here? Excellent, round of applause. 1950 to 1953, amazing. Thank you, gentlemen. We have the Vietnam veterans. If you can or are able, please stand up. Welcome home to all of you. 1963, we put troops into Vietnam. 1965, supposedly then we became active, but I'll tell you, anyone that was there in 63 to 65 probably thought they were pretty active in Vietnam as well. Until 1973 time frame, that is a long commitment and a long time to be deployed and sacrificed, and in that era, in the 70s and 60s. We have obviously then Lebanon, Cuba, we have Grenada, Panama, any of those service members here today? Excellent. I want to make sure we normally tag these wars, but these conflicts cause sacrifice and dedication that sometimes we turn the page in the news and don't realize how much effort it takes. We move on to the Desert Storm era of 90, 91, into 92. Any of our desert folks here today from Desert Storm? We move on into Somalia, Haiti, Bosnia, Herzegovina. We have Kosovo, and even the U.S. coal. Anyone here today in any of those conflicts? I have covered 1940s until September 11th. If you can tell, we have had conflicts, war, or some sort of obligation for our military service members as far back as we can remember. When we channelize it and box it into these wars, we miss all this other responsibility that our service members maintain 100% of the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 366 on leap years. And it takes a force to do that every single day, night and day, and it's all of you who know that sacrifice. So thank you for never letting the guard down. It's amazing. We do have memorials for Pearl Harbor, a day of infamy, things that we need to remember as a country, that sacrifice and that loss, that we need to harbor those lessons learned. And sometimes our nation forgets those. September 11th comes, and we're reminded of what could happen on our own soil. And as you heard here today through the mayor's speech, you know, on U.S. soil, we have not had to fight that battle in a very long time. It is our duty, the National Guard members and everybody else, takes the time to thank them for their service. And I like to give a big shout out to the Coast Guard as well, because they're often forgotten about. The Coast Guard and their duties and responsibilities are second to none, as there falls into the homeland defense, but yet they find themselves often deployed, attached to Navy vessels that even our own state makes and creates and sends them off on. 20 years of war, I'm told it ended. It sometimes doesn't feel that way. It feels like we're still in the area, still conducting operations. But from 2003, an invasion into Iraq, March 21st, 2003, the day my second daughter was born, while I was in the second vehicle leading our U.S. forces into Baghdad. I remember getting the message from ABC Nightline News, Mike Saray at the time, a little torn off piece of paper given to me right after a firefight, 6 pounds, 7 pounds, healthy, meaning, you know, the mother and child. Like, that's all I had. Left a firefight, moved into another firefight. For 20 years, that war went on. I tried to invest into what I could do, and I looked around and I saw all of my community members doing the same. You know, and I try and kill things with humor now that I can't do it the other way, the old-fashioned way. So I remember a story, and I want to take a time to share it. And it's not traditionally combat, even though I was deployed. I had a great peer and a great friend of mine I was working with at the time. I was an E7, a gunnery sergeant, and it was 2011. We were forward deployed in the Middle East area, and I remember we had just come off of a mission, and there's all this riffraff trouble about our uniforms are dirty, we can't eat chow, you gotta go change, all these rules that everybody comes up with. And I remember my peer, this gunnery sergeant, who I love and adore, commenced to dressing someone down in Marine Corps fashion, chewing his ass, pardon me. For this helicopter mechanic, he had the rotors off his bird, and he was in a jumpsuit, flight suit, and he was messy, he was greasy, you know, he was doing his job, and this fellow Marine started giving him the business, and I looked over at him, kept tugging on his shirt, and my peer, you know, he was a drill instructor 2 times over, and he just kept doing his thing, and I kept tugging on his sleeve, and finally looks at me and was like, what? You know, and I looked at him like, we're flying on that tomorrow. You know, and it's a learning lesson that I'll never forget. The chow halls I've been in, you know, before or after firefights going, it could be or could have been my last meal. And I never forget, you know, the gear that I was issued, that the ever so neurotic supply chiefs and officer had to have perfectly clean and everything else. Worked perfectly for me until I broke it myself, but at least I had to step off with the proper equipment, to the mechanics, the vehicles that inserted us, everything. And there's oftentimes, especially now in Wisconsin, where, you know, I may come and do this thing, right? And as I'm doing now, and I look and somebody has some disconnect, we're like, I didn't do what you did. I'm like, you don't realize what you did. I want to thank all of you that may not have deployed, may not have been in combat. Your diligence and your effort and your duties carried on a legacy that supported the mission. And I just want to give you the time and the recognition you deserve for holding the line, as they say. So thank you. I want to thank those that led the way, my predecessors. On that last note, you know, the indoctrination, meaning the books and material that's written on your efforts from Korea, World War II, Vietnam. I enlisted in 1992. I've been trained on patrolling in the jungle. I'm like, we're fighting in the city, you know, and your lessons were never forgotten. They were all heard, felt, and remembered by our generation. And there's plenty of times I found myself in the jungle thinking about your legacy. So I want to take this moment also to thank all of those that came before, and in true fashion, my peer group, those that are serving now and those that served with me. Thank you for standing by my side. Thank you for continuing to stand on my side as a peer group. And I would not be here if it wasn't for somebody on my left clearing that corner or someone on my right clearing that corner. And on that note, it's my attempt to grab your heartstring with today is my alive day. Today, November 4th, 2004, I found myself bleeding out on the street as I was crossing alleyway to alleyway. And my best friends at the time, closer than these two gentlemen, because they were watching left, I was watching right, we crossed the street, and detonation exploded, and they both died instantly. And somehow I'm here today, survivor's guilt, wondering why, questioning all the things that really don't matter, instead of just honoring their legacy and thanking them continuously. So today, as a remembrance of them, you know, and it is pretty heartfelt to be here today in a city that has its own trauma 2 years past. And it's important for me on Veterans Day to talk about mental health and PTSD and all of that. And I'm here to tell you that it doesn't define us, it doesn't make us. It may be a part of us, it might be a chapter of us, but so is the great things and the hobbies and the families we raise, like my daughter sitting right there, Stevie, love you to death. You know, we may have that trauma, but it's the growth out of the trauma that brings the community together and closer, and that's important. Like veterans, learn from us, if you will, as a community, because we are part of our community as veterans. So, that's tough. So, peer group, the predecessors, thank you. The youth, my daughter, 17 years old. Who else do we have in the audience that is under 18? I saw a little young buck back there waving the flag. It makes me happy, even though mom's probably stressed out. But yeah, that's part of it. It's theirs. It's the youth. It is the next generation to carry on the weight of responsibility in our nation. World War II had 10% of our nation fighting. Vietnam, with a draft, had 7% of our nation fighting. 7%. In the 20-year war, you know, global war on terror, we were at 1% and dwindling, sitting at about 0.07% of our nation carrying the weight and the responsibility of defending it. So that's that young man sitting back there on his mom's lap. If he is the responsibility for this entire room, he is the 1%. You veterans have a responsibility, and it's your responsibility to educate, mentor, carry on the history and pass it down to that next generation. Because without that 1%, we're slowly dwindling away. That it is our job and responsibility to ensure that 99.03% of the nation understands, like these individuals do here. It is our duty and responsibility to inspire that next generation. When I grew up, we had Rambo and Rocky and stuff like that, you know, and of course Red Dawn, which didn't reoccur the other day, you know, even though I looked in the skies for it. But it is our responsibility to inspire that youth, and it's events like this that sponsors and communities put on that the youth looks at and says, what's going on it's Veterans Day, and they start looking into it. It's our job to inform them and educate them on the weight of responsibility. So, that's pretty much all I have, but I do have one last group of folks that I didn't cover, and that is that 99.03%, and it is the community. You don't owe us anything. You don't owe us anything. We are a team. And I will say the Fortune 500 will let you know that 163 of them are veteran-owned, so it would behoove you to look into employing veterans. You're not doing them a favor, you're doing your business a favor. You're doing the community a favor. Some of the disconnect that veterans have is they miss their team and their mission. Those two. Teammates and mission. That's all they want. They want to complete a mission. What a great employee. And they miss their team and they want to be on a team again. The soft skills are countless, from decisiveness, my favorite, to tact and professionalism and everything else. But deciders, decision makers that can make a decision and don't take it personal when they're like, guess what, that was right at the time, 5 minutes later, it's not right. I'll change my own decision to better the group. We don't have to ride it into the dirt and crash and fail. We'll decide things for you. So, with that, I implore you to have an amazing day, an amazing week, and I want to thank my girlfriend Shay, 21 years Coast Guard, and my daughter for being here, but then also all of you. So thank you and God bless.